morning, everyone. It's so great to see you. And if you notice, I am wearing my mask this morning. This is a superhero mask. We want everyone to be a superhero and to keep their mask on so that we can all stay healthy, safe, and reopen our economy. So I am going to put my mask back on. I am going to welcome all of our attendees. I'm going to welcome our sponsor today, Lucile Packard Children's Hospital, Stanford. We are so grateful to all of our sponsors. You saw all of the different sponsors who were scrolling through your screen earlier. We have a full day for you here today. We're going to start with a Lucile Packard Children's Hospital Stanford video. So welcome. Welcome to the second edition of this year's 2020 Progress Seminar. Let's see the video.
Hi everyone, I'm Rick Majan with Stanford Children's Health, Lucile Packard Children's Hospital, and I'd like to welcome you to the annual Redwood City Progress Seminar. 2020 has certainly been an interesting year, and we've been very proud to continue serving moms and children, teenagers throughout this entire year, and are very grateful for the community support that we've received and the help that we've received in helping to do so, whether it was donations of PPE, personal protective equipment, or food to feed our staff who are taking care of patients. We've tried to be a good community partner as well, continuing our relationships with a number of community agencies we give grants to, helping to line them up with other organizations that can help them in this tough time, working with San Mateo Strong to keep supporting local businesses, working with the Silicon Valley Leadership Group's COVID-19 group to develop personal protective equipment, face shields that can be used throughout our organization. It has really been a very interesting year for all of us, but I think we've come together nicely as a community, supported each other, and again, thank you for making time to attend this seminar, and we will be here to take care of your kids, to take care of you moms, and take care of anyone in the community who needs us. So thanks again.
Welcome back. And actually, I want to highlight our session sponsor this morning, which is another one of our premier healthcare providers, and that's Kaiser Permanente. We are so grateful for Kaiser's facilities throughout San Mateo County. Our premier sponsor is Lucile Packard Children's Hospital, Stanford, and our session sponsor is Kaiser Permanente. Folks, San Mateo County is a unique place, and to have the kind of healthcare providers that we have, we are so incredibly lucky. Now, I want to welcome Sherry Sager, Chief Government Officer for Lucile Packard Children's Hospital, Stanford, who will introduce our featured speaker this morning. I hope you're as excited as I am to hear from Dr. Joshi. It is going to be a fantastic session. We have a great panel planned for you later today. Supervisor Carol Groom will be moderating, Mike Callaghy and Louise Rogers and myself, where we're going to talk about all that we have done as a community. Sherry, welcome. Great to see you.
Thank you, Roseanne. I am delighted to be here this morning and be part of the Progress Seminar. It's my absolute delight to be able to introduce Dr. Shashank Joshi, who is a professor and director of training in child and adolescent psychiatry and the director of school mental health at Stanford University. I've known Dr. Shashank since he came to Stanford more than 2 decades ago. And I thought that as part of my introduction, I wanted to give you 2 quick stories that really illustrate both how humble Dr. Joshi is and how in demand he is. Probably more than a decade ago, I was putting together a child health policy brown bag lunch forum for the School of Medicine. And I had the dean of the School of Medicine, who is a pediatric oncologist, lined up to speak, and the new secretary of the Health and Human Services Agency for the state, who was also the past CEO from the California Children's Hospital Association. And then I asked Dr. Joshi to be the third speaker because I really wanted mental health in there. And he said, okay. And then a couple days later, he realized who else was on the panel, and he called me up and he said, Sherry, I don't know if this is such a good idea. You know, these are really big shots, and I'm just a junior faculty member. And I said, You are absolutely the right person to speak. You need to be there. He agreed to do it, and he knocked a home run. It was just out of the park. And he's been going great guns ever since. The second quick illustration is we do an adolescent mental wellness conference every couple of years. He has paired with one of our adolescent medicine physicians and one of our professors over at the School of Education to do this seminar that is so great. It is in such demand that they've now been asked to take it on the road. He is an expert at talking about child and adolescent mental wellness and how do we help them, how do we support them, how do we keep our kids healthy. And so it is my great pleasure to introduce Dr. Shashank Joshi. Shashank.
Thank you, Sherry, so much. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Fantastic. Well, it's really wonderful to be with all of you. Sherry, thank you for that kind introduction. It is awesome to have been working with you for so long, and I look forward to many more years together. I've got some people who are cueing me in case I'm glitchy, in case my words are not exactly matching what I'm saying, but it sounds like so far so good. I am going to be speaking today on a couple of issues. Probably the most important one is going to be about our own mental health as a community. But I also am going to be talking a bit about the work that Lucile Packard has been supporting and the School of Medicine has been encouraging us to do around addressing some of the very important issues as a result of COVID-19 with regard to the work I do in schools. So not only students, but also teachers, parents, and the community at large. So I'm going to share my screen and hope that this will all be visible to you. And can you see my screen? Yes, great. Okay, I've got Lucy Wicks as my cue over here. Thank you, Lucy. So I'm going to begin with some overall comments just to get us going this morning. The very first thing is to wish you all happy World Kindness Day. So World Kindness Day, November 13th, and this is a day that promotes the crucial centrality of being kind to each other, to the world, and probably most importantly for this talk, to yourself. We are, as community leaders, those whom we care for, to those whom we are working with, those who might report to us. But it's really important to help everyone understand that compassion for yourself as well as compassion for others is what binds us all together. And this understanding, of course, can bridge the gap not only among members of the same community, but in particular between nations. And if you want to read more about it, I put the link here. And I will be sharing these slides so that hopefully you can all get access to them. I have some resources at the end as well. And so now I am going to try and hope that my slides will cooperate. And we will next jump into a little bit of what we've been doing regarding the COVID-19 pandemic. Of course, this is no surprise to you. Many of you are parents. Some of you may be grandparents with children at home. You've seen what it's like to have children working virtually. And this has probably been the largest disruption of education at any point in the world. These data were, and this is shown to be true by mid-April, more than 90% of learners were affected by this. Almost 1.6 billion children from pre-primary to higher education across the world. And this, of course, means not only interrupted learning for students and confusion and distress for teachers and parents who are unprepared to always have to be balancing even more than usual distance learning, work, and home are not only in learning, but also in how we care for our children, whether we're doing it or whether there are the childcare facilities that we relied on if we have younger children, poor nutrition, and of course, possible increases in domestic violence and child abuse, which have borne true. The numbers have been sobering over the past several months. And in addition, we all know about the high economic costs and the unintended strain on our healthcare workforce. I loved how our host today, Rocky, started with the mask and called it a hero mask, a superhero mask. I think that's very important. Some of you noticed my Vince Lombardi statue from Lambeau Field. I was born in Green Bay. Even Vince is wearing a mask, the statue of Vince. So what are the things we can do to prevent things like social isolation? And in particular, we have trouble really knowing how much the impact is across different communities. All of these adverse consequences are magnified, in particular for those who are socially or economically disadvantaged. And Sherry knows this so well through the amazing work that the Office of Community Partnerships has been doing for so many years. But you might notice I've had this symbol on the left here. And those of you who speak Mandarin, or those of you who are of Chinese descent, may recognize this is a symbol for crisis. Of course, out of crisis comes opportunity. So crisis and opportunity. So this in Chinese is known as Wei Ji. Wei means danger or crisis. Ji refers to opportunity. In English, of course, crisis is only one word, but in Chinese, it translates to these two sides. Taoism, the 5,000-year-old philosophy, talks about things having two sides. So when there is danger, there must also be opportunity. Chinese literature grew deeply from Taoist beliefs. Everything is about combining both sides. If there is a yin side, there is a yang side. Look at the positive and negative always as one, always together. For example, in my work at Stanford, without an instructor, there is no student. If there is no student, there is no instructor. So the instructor and the student make a whole. In the same way, with all of the things we've been dealing with, there are actually opportunities. What can we do better? What can we do to interrupt this force of nature that we label as crisis? Intercepting the force gets us to look for more opportunity, a new product, a new energy, a new force, a new way to connect with one another. Yes, it's going to be wonderful when we can have the Adolescent Wellbeing Conference in person, but we've been able to do a lot of work personally across and other technologies. So Taoism encourages us to engage in life and to be very positive where possible, to really help influence our way of living. So not all distance learning is bad. And the data over the last 6 months has shown that students retain more material when learning online compared to very little in the classroom. And this is true, especially when we were having the asynchronous Zoom sessions where kids could log on when they wanted. They'd know when their when their assignments are due, but they didn't have to be on for 7 or 8 hours at a time. We know that e-learning requires less time to learn because students can learn at their own pace. Some students have really felt empowered by this. Others, on the other hand, who don't have consistent technology, even now, those of you who have excellent technology, you're hearing me and I'm a little bit glitchy. So even with this high-powered, I'm in my office, Stanford setup, I am still glitchy. So although new technology can offer these creative engagement tools, they're not always consistent. They still, however, can give opportunity to those, for example, who have a hard time getting to campus. And so could online learning catalyze some kind of shift from the traditional teacher talk to the student, student listens, student turn in the assignment to, a more intentional use of breakout groups, not only virtually, but also in person? Can we take the principles of adult learning theory, which is to actively engage learners, and apply it to K-12 education? So that's a very interesting area that many of my colleagues are working on in the educational field around the country. And we'll get into that a little bit more as I continue with my talk. So I want to begin with a wonderful resource, and I'm going to be highlighting a number of resources that are already out there. And the first one comes from our very own Nadine Burke-Harris, who spent her formative years at Stanford and, of course, has now gone on to do amazing, wonderful things to deal with the concept of adverse childhood experience. She's a pediatrician. She began the Center for Youth Wellness in San Francisco. She is now, of course, our first Surgeon General. And she put out the 18. With the numbers going up, it has never been more relevant than right now. Not to forget these relationships that can protect our brains and bodies from the harmful effects of stress, adversity, and having to deal with things that are really out of the realm of what we're used to. So she came up with the 6 stress-busting strategies. This is the website right here. They actually make a lot of sense when you look at the wheel, but what she does really nicely is there is a very easy set of how you can create your own stress-busting plan for you and your family to get mental health and well-being front and center in order to help us manage our stress hormones and improve our health overall. In school mental health, we are always meeting with superintendents, getting them to understand, and school boards as well, that mental health is part of overall health, and students have to be healthy enough to learn. Healthy brains make better students who are more engaged, who are more likely to come to school, who are more likely to log on, even who are more likely to have their video screens on. One of the things we do here at Stanford, which is terrific, is we compete with Berkeley in lots of ways, but we also highlight when Berkeley does amazing things. And here is yet another amazing resource from UC Berkeley, which is the Greater Good Science Center. A wonderful resource, chock full of resources, and there is a very important link here, the Guide to Wellbeing During Coronavirus. Again, I was highlighting this through many talks I've done over the last 6 months, including with our own Congressperson Jackie Spear. And this is a very, very well-regarded website. But more importantly, I want to highlight something that we use in many of our classes, which is the 6 daily questions for quarantine. So ask yourself, what am I grateful for today? Who am I checking in on or connecting with today? For the first 2, I can tell you, we're about to have the Hindu New Year, Diwali, which is this weekend. I am fortunate to have, I'm of Indian origin, born and raised here, but I still have 4 or 5 relatives who are 5 uncles and aunts, some of whom are directly related, others who are just chosen family, who are 90 or above, age 90 or above. So checking in on them and connecting with them, each of them at least once a week, gives me someone to be able to connect with and making sure that I'm making that contact once a month. I'm full of gratitude to have them in my life. And it's something that I've been able to do even in the pandemic. What expectations of normal am I letting go of today? What can I say? Yeah, I normally would do this in a different kind of way, but right now it's 2020. And, we've all been sleep deprived because of checking the election results. So I'm going to let some things go. This is an act of self-compassion that I'm going to invite you all to do. How am I getting outside today, and how am I moving my body today? More and more, been able to take my bike to work, and noticing that, before the fires and after the fires, even through the pandemic, the skies were bluer than ever because there were less cars on the road. The flowers were blooming, the hummingbirds were humming, and I could take different routes to work and really enjoy the ride in a different kind of a way. And finally, what beauty am I either creating, cultivating, noticing, or inviting in today? I want to thank you all, beautiful people, for being here on World Kindness Day on November 13th, for spending time with us in this particular conference today. So here's the thing about well-being and managing your energy. all of you are very, very busy. You're balancing work and life, trying to take care of yourself, trying to take care of your professional lives and your personal lives. You really can do anything. Remind yourself, you can't do everything. So here's where we are. I'm speaking with you. I've got all of my devices plugged in. And, I really love this metaphor. And I've gotten this from my colleague, Grace Zhanggu, who just published a book with a number of folks from our department on professional well-being, in particular for those in the mental health field. So here's where we want to be: fully charged, full of resilience, full of these positive inputs that we use now: a psychosocial support, healthy activities, social connection. Of course, we want to be physically distanced and masked, as Rocky told us to do, but we want to be actually socially very well connected. So I actually think the term social distancing, as you know, is probably a misnomer. We want social closeness and social connection with physical distancing and masking. We want to still try and cultivate healthy activities. We want to really pay attention to mentorship, even if we can't meet with our students or our mentors or our senior mentors in person, our peers in person. We can still connect virtually. We can still go on socially distanced walks for now. I'd say physically distanced again and socially connected, seeking that intellectual stimulation which keeps us engaged in our work even during these tough times. We have to balance that with all the negative input we get around the stress, the things we don't have control over, some of the conflict we have interpersonally and internally, and the time and energy demands. So what happens is, if we can build our coping capacity by taking some of the tools that I'm reviewing today, we're more likely to be in full battery mode than in compassion fatigue and burnout mode. So this is a little example of recharging one's battery for self-care. Think about the things that you need to keep your battery fully charged. Well, your mind is your most important tool. So there are many cognitive strategies that science has shown us can enhance our well-being. And I'm going to just highlight two of them. Again, these have been published before, but we've just taken some examples when Dr. Zhanggu, who I just mentioned, and I were doing some talks in the community and for the School of Education, the Grad School of Ed, we used some of these examples, and I want to highlight a couple. So self-valuation and self-compassion. This is where you prioritize your own well-being and cultivate a growth mindset in response to errors. This year, all of the Stanford freshmen read Angela Duckworth's book, Grit, and they learned all about growth mindsets through also reading Carol Dweck's work on mindset. So a lot of this comes from our own faculty, and a lot of this is you find out about faculty work by looking at the bestseller list. Lower self-valuation, where we're not prioritizing our personal well-being and not prioritizing a growth mindset, but seeing errors and mistakes as failures rather than opportunities for growth, is associated with higher risk for burnout in our professional work. Thank you. I was just reminded that it was Roseanne who was the woman who was reminding us to mask. Thank you, Roseanne. Although, Rocky, I know you practice good masking as well and physical distancing. I want to move to gratitude next. So gratitude. Gratitude is what was mentioned in those 6 crucial questions to ask yourself in quarantine, which come from Brooke Anderson, by the way. She was the writer who contributed that at the Greater Good Science Center. And I just want to highlight this one practice, and I'm going to play a YouTube and hope that I'll be able to stream it here. The 3 good things is where you can see improved happiness and well-being, improved work-life balance, and reduced burnout and depression. This is particularly true in a study that was done with healthcare workers, but it's true for people who are not in healthcare as well. And we use this exercise in my course called The Psychology of Stoked, which I teach to Stanford freshmen and sophomores with Dr. Darren Richeter. So now let me see if I can get this to stream. And I'm just going to ask my people. Are you seeing this right now as I'm streaming this?
Under pressure, Q&A from the Duke Center for Healthcare Safety and Quality.
Sharing is paused. Okay, hang on just a second. Let me see if I can get this to play.
For my folks right now. Does that sound relevant? The short answer is 3 good things. Barbara Fredrickson says the negative screams at us, but the positive only whispers.
Let me see.
Burnout and moral distress are about the impaired ability to experience positive emotions.
Are you seeing this now?
Positive emotions, joy, gratitude, serenity, interest, hope, pride, amusement, awe, wonder, and
all right, I'm starting it again.
Under pressure, Q&A from the Duke Center for Healthcare Safety and Quality. Our question today is, what's the most popular of your well-being tools? I need a safe bet for my folks right now. Does that sound relevant? The short answer is 3 good things. Barbara Fredrickson says the negative screams at us, but the positive only whispers. You see, burnout and moral distress are about the impaired ability to experience positive emotion. There are 10 of these positive emotions: joy, gratitude, serenity, interest, hope, pride, amusement, awe, wonder, and inspiration, and love. Now, when we are experiencing these positive emotions, it fills us with a sense of purpose and meaning. In fact, I dare you to feel a sense of purpose and meaning without going through one or more of those positive emotions. It's also through those positive emotions that we recharge our depleted batteries. So how do you make positive emotions more accessible when the negative ones are so prevalent? A simple intervention called 3 good things. Randomized clinical trials have shown that doing 3 good things every day for 1 week results in significantly elevated happiness and reduced depression. We found this to be interesting, and so we expanded this to healthcare workers and did it not for 1 week, but for 2. Why? Because for 1 week of 3 good things, the effect size is slightly better than what you find for selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors like Prozac antidepressants. For 2 weeks, it's significantly better than SSRIs. In fact, we found for healthcare workers, not only did we increase happiness and reduce depression, but we also decreased burnout and decreased problems with work-life balance. We found over 15-day studies that by day 15, there was already significant reduction in those problems with work-life balance and burnout and depression. And also, these improvements were sustained for a year later. We've done this in multiple studies, so these are enduring effects. They don't just go away very briefly. 3 good things is on demand. You can start at any time. You can use email or text formats. If you like it, you can share it with your colleagues. It takes about 2 to 5 minutes to enroll, about a minute or 2 each evening, and you're done after about 15 days or 2 weeks. So what's the take-home message here? The negative is like Velcro. The positive is like Teflon. It just slides off. What 3 good things does is it enhances your ability to see the positive that is there. It's scalable from individuals to work setting levels. For more resources and well-being activities, check out our website and come back because we're always adding new evidence-based tools and resources. As always, thank you for joining us today. Be well.
Okay. So I want to go back to where I was, and I want to give you one more example, and I think we figured out how to do this properly.
So with all this in mind,
hang on 1 second.
To the tool that I wanted to share with you, and the tool is called 3 Good Things. Now this is because we are hardwired as human beings to remember the.
Okay. Let me see.
When you start to do the 3 good things exercise, there are 2 things to watch for. First, do you sleep better that night? Now, remember, the right time to do it is right before you go to bed. So as you go into sleep, thinking about the 3 things that went well today and why they went well, notice if you sleep better. The second thing to notice is the next day, do you start looking around the world as you go through the world for the things that are going well? If you do that, then the exercise is working for you. The 3 good things exercise works because you pay more attention to things you normally don't pay attention to. The way we're wired is when things go well, we forget them. When things go badly, we remember them. That's the reason that you need an exercise to concentrate and attend to what's going well in your life. The more you attend to the things that are going well in your life, the more positive emotion.
Okay, so I'm back and I'm going to be sharing my slides again. And thank you for, sorry about that. So sorry about that. Hang on one second.
Embarrassed that I have a career.
Okay, so things on YouTube come fast. And so you have to be ready for them to just start when you don't want them to start. Okay, I think I'm back now with you all with my slides. Is that correct? So the one thing I want to say about the 3 good things is it's important not only to write down what went well, but in particular to write down why they went well. So the 3 good things are at night, you write down 3 things that went well that day and why they went well. I'll give you an example. So my youngest son, who's 12, he got, for a holiday present last year, he got a gift card to go to Teaspoon, which is, I think you all know what Teaspoon is. It's a bubble tea place. And he went with his friend. He was very excited he had just gotten a skateboard as well. And he wanted to, skateboard down with his friend, meet them there to get bubble tea. And I said, yes, of course. And he was very excited. It was like a new thing of independence for him to go by himself. Well, he came back with one for me too. It was a very hot day. And it was just a wonderful surprise. And he got my order right because he remembered from the last time. And, it was lychee tea with extra boba and lychee jelly with 25% ice and no sweetness. Well, he just nailed it. It was such a wonderful surprise. And to see the expression on his face, he's like, hey, Dad, I brought you a surprise. Well, that was one of the things for me that went well. It was a simple thing, but it was so beautiful. It went well. And why did it go well? This is the other thing I wrote. Well, because my son loves me. He cares about me and I care about him. And it was just a little moment, but it was really something that I needed that day because it was a particularly busy time in my life professionally. And if I wasn't actually teaching my class, and when I teach the class, I'm always doing the gratitude exercises, the 3 good things as an example, it reminded me to pay attention to the small things that may have a lot of important positivity in my life that I might otherwise not notice. So what went well and why they went well. And then cognitive reappraisal. So this is, again, using your brain and using your cognition to be kind to yourself. And those of you, again, on this, you're probably all in leadership positions. So important, remembering that oxygen mask metaphor, when we used to fly a lot, right? Going from meeting to meeting, if the air pressure drops and you need to put oxygen on, first on yourself before helping someone you're traveling with. So this is regarding feelings, okay? We might be feeling like we should be doing things better. We might be feeling like we should be more efficient. Well, during COVID, it's really about acknowledging these are my feelings. These are not me. I am not my feelings. My mistakes do not define me. And what you can do over time is learn how to notice and observe your emotions in addition to feeling them. So you might feel your emotions, but over time, what you can learn to do is to notice and observe them. So if I'm beating myself up because, I didn't get something done exactly the way I wanted to get it done, I can just observe it and say, yep, there I go again. I'm beating myself up, and it was good enough. And it was not my best work, but it sort of achieved what I wanted it to. The other thing is when you name an emotion or feeling, you're engaging your prefrontal cortex. When you engage your prefrontal cortex, what makes us human are, having evolved from sea-living, crawling creatures, where our amygdala, which is the place where we think about fight, flight, or freeze, that takes less of a role when we engage the prefrontal cortex. So if our immediate feeling is fight, flight, or freeze because of, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? The numbers are going to go up. Dr. Cody's going to say we have to go up to orange or red zone. I know she's not going to do that, but even if she does, I trust her, because Sarah Cody should be the Time Magazine Woman of the Year. Those of you who know her, she's the Santa Clara County Health Officer. She's also a Palo Alto parent and just an awesome human. But if the COVID numbers go up, does it mean we're going to have to be on lockdown soon? Does it mean we're going to have to be in curfew? Well, we can just notice that and say, yeah, there I go again. I'm sort of going to that place of negativity. This is really not in my control right now. What is in my control is to make sure that I do what I was reminded by Roseanne to do at the very beginning. Make sure I'm masking, which I always do, but making sure that I'm getting others to do so as well. That is in my control. So what are your essential ingredients? And so I want you all just to take a minute right now, based on what I've spoken about so far, and just write down, put in your notes, or put on a piece of paper the 3 things that you have found to be most essential as an ingredient in your own resilience. And if you wouldn't mind sharing them, either actually putting them in the Q&A, and then either Roseanne or Sherry or someone who's going to be moderating would be able to maybe call those out so that we can hear what some of your essential ingredients are. Alternatively, as they come in, you can actually name them out if you want. I'm going to give you about another 30 seconds. There's some ideas here on the left that might remind you of some of the things that are important to you. Mindmeister, mood gym, meditation, gratitude practice, connection to others, exercise, staying active, staying connected to your family and friends, not only here, but maybe internationally. Okay. I now want to move to this really exciting opportunity that's happening as part of Stanford University's commitment to Redwood City. And this is the Redwood City K-12 initiative. And a big shout out to Lucy Wicks and to my colleagues, Amy Gerstein and the folks at the Gardner Center for Youth and their communities, as well as our very own Vicki Harrison and Steve Adelsheim, and a number of other people who have been really crucial to help get this launched. So this is a collaboration and research support partnership with Redwood City Schools, Redwood City School District, which is a K-8 district, and Sequoia Union High School District. And what we're planning to do is we have launched a 3-year collaboration, and we'll be deploying programmatic mental health capacity building support and research resources to meet the crucial needs of Redwood City schools, educators, students, and families. And we're going to focus on strategies that also deepen the work of the GSC's Gardner Center for Youth in their communities and the Stanford Psychiatry for Youth Mental Health and Well-Being. And this is in support specifically of Redwood City schools and the larger community. And this is thanks to the work of Lucy Wicks from Government Affairs Office and the support of our very own Mark Tessier-Levine and the other and the Board of Trustees who approved this initiative. So what does this actually mean? Well, mental health capacity building service and collaborative expansion means that we'll be extending some of the work that has already been done, school and community professional development and collaborative services with Redwood City Schools and the surrounding community. And we're going to be using some of the models that were already developed in Santa Clara County through some of our existing partnerships as it relates to well-being promotion and suicide prevention in schools. And we're going to have a research component as part of this, where we have engaged with the Graduate School of Education's research team to address immediate data needs. And actually, the Gardner Center and GSE have been involved in Redwood City and the community for a number of years. And so this was not a difficult project to really sell, either because to the Redwood City community, nor to Dean Dan Schwartz from the GSE, because he's been involved, the university's been involved, and the community's been a partner over many years, and they've seen us as a partner, which is, of course, the most important thing whenever you're doing community-based participatory research. I'm just going to give you a couple of more resources. Again, you'll have these slides. This is from the National Center on School Mental Health, and this is a COVID-19 mental health resource page. In particular, resources for school staff and administrators, resources on well-being and mental health promotion in schools, and specifically technology to support mental health. There's also a wonderful link on cultural responsiveness and equity. There's a wonderful resource page that NCSMH has put together. And this includes resources for schools as well as mental health providers, communities, families, and students on how to be culturally responsive and how to promote equity in school mental health. More resources here, including some of the content that's been put together by my colleagues in the Department of Psychiatry, positive parenting during shelter in place, talking to young people about COVID-19, minimizing the impact of the pandemic on sleep are 3 examples that you can access for free. And here's the website where you can access those. So I am going to take a pause there, and I think you might be seeing me in duplicate here. I'm going to highlight a few things that are being highlighted here: sleep, friends, family, exercise, empathy, inward and outward. There may be some others that are coming in on the Q&A. And I've got about 15 more minutes, and then we'll have time for Q&A. So I'm going to now share a version of a talk that we do with high school students. And this is a talk that focuses on well-being, which was first developed in our course, The Psychology of Stoked, with Professor Darren Richarder, who I mentioned before. And in particular, I want to shout out a couple of our undergraduate superstars who put this talk together for the high schools based on the experiences that they had in our course called The Psychology of Stoked, which is about basically the neuroscience of joy and well-being and how we can apply it in our daily lives. It's a 10-week intro sem, which is offered to freshmen and sophomores at Stanford. And they took what they learned and they're applying it. They're paying it forward. And they themselves are acting in the mentor role to deliver this. My student, JJ Singapore, and his peers, there have been a number of them who've also done this work. So I'm going to try and give you a little taste of what they have been doing. And I'm hoping that this works. And I don't care that Zoom 5.0 is here. Let me see if I can X out of this. Let me stop my share for a moment. Sorry about that. Okay. Zoom wants to give me all kinds of things that I'm not interested in right now. So let me see if I can get this to share. Okay. So can you all see this? I've got a slideshow here. Lucy, can you see this okay? Yes, she can see it. So I am now going to see if I can move my bar here so that you can see this. Okay, so this course is called The Psychology of Stoked. And I hope this plays. This is a very sensitive mouse. So let me get this back to here.
These resorts, the weather will be excellent. No storms on the horizon, but all that powder there ready to go down for skis and for snowboards. We bumped into a couple of people who made their way up to the Bay Area this morning. They just can't wait to get up to North Star. So stoked. Like, I don't even, like, winter's here. You know, this is the first time we've been up. I'm stoked. You stoked?
Stoked.
Just so stoked.
Yes, yes.
I mean, it came down last night, what, a good 5 inches?
Last night, I think so, something like that, and a couple feet the day before.
You've got a 5-foot base with 5 inches of freshie on top.
Yeah, 5-foot base with the 5 inches of freshie on top. So this dude is stoked. We play this, you know, we have international students. They've sort of heard of the concept of stoked, but I think this guy, was a little quiet, but this guy really, really illustrates what it means to be stoked. So this is the course, an investigation of the art and science of joy and the exploration of happiness. And there's a whole description there. And this is us. We are the instructors. And we start with the mausoleum. So this is really odd, right? Lucy, can you still hear us okay? And see my slides? So we start at the mausoleum of the Stanfords, and we read from Friedrich Nietzsche's Eternal Return. We actually have the students read it. We did this one in English and Chinese and Mandarin as well, because we had international students. And it goes something like this. What if someday or night a demon were to steal after you into your loneliest loneliness and say to you, this life as you now live it and have lived it, you will have to live once more and innumerable times more. We actually have the students, each of them read a sentence, and then the next student reads a sentence, and the next, so they all put it together. There will be nothing new in it, but every pain and every joy and every thought and sigh and everything unutterably small or great in your life will have to return to you, all in the same succession and sequence. Even this spite and this moonlight between the trees, and even this moment and I myself, the eternal hourglass of existence, is turned upside down again and again, and you with it, speck of dust. Would you not throw yourself down and gnash your teeth and curse the demon who spoke thus? Or have you once experienced a tremendous moment when you would have answered him, you are a god, and never have I heard anything more divine? If this thought gained possession of you, it would change you as you are, or perhaps crush you. So this is how we start the course. And the basic idea is, what are you going to do with this life that you are given? Imagine you're going to be living it over and over and over again. So make the most of each moment. Make every moment tremendous if you can. So why does Nietzsche refer to the eternal return also as the heaviest burden, which is how this is referred to in this passage? And again, we get them to think about this. They do exercises related to it. And it's a really wonderful way to start the course off. Do you want this again and innumerable times again? Do you want to have COVID keep coming back? Well, you can focus on the things you can control. Many of you are familiar with the serenity prayer, where you ask your higher power to help you by granting you the serenity to accept the things that you cannot control, the courage to change the things you can, and the wisdom to know the difference. So what can you control? Do you want this again innumerable times again? Well, if you had it, what would you do with this life? So then we move into positive psychology. And you heard Marty Seligman on the 3 Good Things talking about what positive psychology is. He's really the father of American positive psychology. And so this was a very important part of what Darren and I call him Coach Darren, were doing when we were coaching Little League. We coached Little League, we got 2 city championships, and then our kids outgrew Little League. And what were we going to do? We didn't want the Stoke to end. So we took the principles that we learned in coaching and we brought them to the classroom. And we begin with Marty Seligman from UPenn, who coined this term and introduced a new theory of well-being in the 2000s called PERMA: positive emotions, engagement, positive relationships, meaning, and accomplishment. Now, if you do a YouTube search of PERMA, you're going to find a lot of different clips talking about it. You're not going to find very much on B PERMA yet, because B is what we have added because of our work with our students, and B has to do with belonging. So what is belonging? Belonging is really different from fitting in. It's related, but it's different. Fitting in is about assessing a situation and becoming who you need to be in order to be accepted. Belonging, on the other hand, does not require us to change who we are. It requires us to be who we are. Now, the author Brené Brown, who many of you are familiar with, if you haven't, I encourage you to please read Brené Brown. She is truly one of the most influential writers of our time. She quotes a 12-year-old when talking about belonging and belongingness. And the 12-year-old said, "If I get to be myself, I belong. If I have to be like you, I fit in." And so helping young people find their path when they come to Stanford and find their path in high school, which is a normal task of adolescence, figuring out who you are so that you can fit in, but eventually getting to a place where you feel like you belong. And we include that as part of well-being because we see that as a very important developmental task of adolescence and young adulthood. Positive emotion. This is what we think of as happiness. Here are some pictures of people in our class doing some exercises, including Coach Darren here on one of his favorite places up by the Russian River. E is for engagement. The engaged life is about flow, being one with the music, with your sports team, time stopping, the loss of self-consciousness during an absorbing activity, such as when Jordan shoots this famous shot, buzzer beater. He had so many. This was over the Utah Jazz. And if you've ever seen the Warriors when they were winning their 3 titles and how the ball flowed, it was like seamless. And Coach Kerr talks about this, having played with Jordan, having played in San Antonio, and having won rings 3 out of his first 4 years as a coach. This idea of engagement in what you're doing. Relationships. This was based initially on this longitudinal study, the Harvard Study of Adult Development, which started with more than 700 young men, followed them over time, and found out that the people who were the most satisfied in their relationships at age 50 were the healthiest at age 80. And of course, close relationships are what keep us all happy and connected. It also helps us live longer. In fact, close relationships are a better predictor of longevity than money, fame, social class, IQ, or even genes by themselves. So relationships is the R and B PERMA theory. Relationships help us thrive. M is for meaning. The pursuit of engagement and the pursuit of pleasure are often solitary. The meaningful life, according to PERMA theory, consists of belonging to and serving something that you believe in that is bigger than yourself. That can look like spiritual practice. That can look like engagement in a secular way to a cause that is larger than yourself. Many people who were involved in Get Out the Vote campaigns, where they made phone calls to different parts of the US, felt very engaged and very meaningful because they were contributing to something larger than themselves. Finally, A for accomplishment. And here is JJ Kapoor Singh, the person who put this talk together, one of my students. He is a theater major who is going to become a psychologist and going to do wonderful work. People pursue achievement and need to have mastery in a variety of domains. But accomplishment can actually be pursued even when it doesn't bring you positive emotion, meaning, or relationships. In other words, people can climb a mountain because it's there. For example, Alex Honnold, who is a free climber, getting stoked by just climbing the next big mountain. Here's JJ, who is in an improv group at Stanford where they don't know what part they're going to play until the night before the performance. So they have to learn each and every role in the play in order to be ready for what they're going to have to play the next day. So can you imagine, as a Stanford student, taking 14, 15, 17 credits and also being in something like this? Well, he talked about the feeling of well-being that he had. They were able to do, I think, 1 or 2 shows before COVID hit. And finally, the 2 drops of oil, and this comes from The Alchemist, Paulo Coelho. Many of you know his work. And again, we have people read from this, and I'll just read it for you quickly, which has to do with achieving balance in our life. And we don't tell the students in the beginning, but basically we have them read it. They read 1 sentence at a time. It goes something like this. A merchant sent his son to learn the secret of happiness from the wisest of men. The young man wandered through the desert for 40 days until he reached a beautiful castle at the top of a mountain. There lived the sage that the young man was looking for. However, instead of finding a holy man, our hero entered a room and saw a great deal of activity. Merchants coming and going, people chatting in the corners, a small orchestra playing sweet melodies, and there was a table laden with the most delectable dishes of that part of the world. The wise man talked to everybody, and the young man had to wait for 2 hours until it was time for his audience. Well, the sage listened attentively to the reason for the boy's visit, but told him that at that moment he did not have the time to explain to him the secret of happiness. He suggested that the young man take a stroll around his palace and come back in 2 hours' time. However, I want to ask you a favor, he added, handing the boy a teaspoon in which he poured 2 drops of oil. While you walk, carry this spoon and don't let the oil spill. The young man began to climb up and down the palace staircases, always keeping his eyes fixed on the spoon. At the end of 2 hours, he returned to the presence of the wise man. So, did you see the Persian tapestries hanging in my dining room? Did you see the garden that the master of gardeners took 10 years to create? Did you see the beautiful parchments in my library? Well, embarrassed, the young man confessed he had seen nothing. His only concern was not to spill the drops of oil that the wise man had entrusted to him. So, go back, see the wonders of the world. You can't trust a man if you don't know his house. Now more at ease, the young man took the spoon and strolled again through the palace, this time paying attention to all the works of art that hung from the ceiling and walls. He saw the gardens, the mountains all around the palace, the delicacy of the flowers, the taste with which each work of art was placed in its niche. Now returning to the sage, he reported in detail all that he had seen. But where are the 2 drops of oil that I entrusted to you? Asked the sage. Looking down at the spoon, the young man realized that he had spilled the oil. Well, that is the only advice I have to give you. The secret of happiness lies in looking at all the wonders of the world and never forgetting the 2 drops of oil in the spoon. And so we have them reflect. We have them talk about what it means to live a life of balance, to be able to pursue the things that bring you positive emotion and happiness, to be able to take healthy risks. We've had people say, after you read that poem in class, I actually asked the person out who we asked them to do something scary that they wouldn't have done until this class. And then they take the risk and they tell us about the exercise when they come back. And so anyway, this is a theme that I'm coalescing here. And then finally, Carpe Diem, which comes from our very own Robin Williams, who we lost last year. And I am hoping to be able to play this for you this is from the Dead Poets Society. And I'm just looking at the time here, realizing that you might want to watch this clip on your own because I want to be able to get to some of your questions. Just do a search for Carpe Diem Seize the Day. And it's basically Robin Williams telling these young students what we tell our students in our Stoke seminar, which is to seize the day and make the most of what life is bringing you, even in the middle of a pandemic. And so with that, I'm going to, these are the last things we do, is which element of B-PERMA is your strongest, which element of B-PERMA needs the most attention. And so we ask them to do that between now and next week, and they come back and they discuss that with us, having reflected on the things that we go over and apply it to their own life. So I'm going to invite all of you to do the same. And I am also going to now turn this over to Maggie, I believe, or Roseanne, or someone is going to be, or maybe Sherry will read some questions from the chat that are coming in.
Thank you. That was so awesome. I've been having a hard time because people keep texting me while you're talking, saying, "This is great. How can we get them to do more?" So just really wanted to pass it on. But I've been asked to go through the list of the different things that people put down in the Q&A on their things that they were grateful for. So I'm just going to read them quickly, and then you can respond afterwards. Friends and family, exercise, being kind to others, alone time, nature, essential, getting out in nature and reducing my screen time, being more present, compassion, humor, reflection, sleep, laughing, running, self-care, patience and love, get outdoors, sense of humor, breathing tools, laughing, sleeping, talking to my mom, calm, decisive, loyal, part of, connecting with college friends weekly, listening to birds and nature, unscheduled time, walking 45 minutes every morning and 45 minutes every late afternoon, and double that on weekends. Also mindful laughing every day. So it's living at the ocean.
Can I just comment on something there? The person who said mindful laughing every day, mindful laughing doesn't mean you have to be careful. You have to be, you have to do it slow. You can laugh out loud. The idea of mindful laughing is that you intentionally go to things that are going to bring you humor, and that you find humorous, that are going to bring you joy, that are going to make you more likely to laugh. And then the mindful part is to really just lose yourself in the moment while you are really making sure that every day you get a dose of that. Because that mindful laughter, that humor, is especially crucial these days in the middle of a pandemic where there is so much that is out of our control. Well, scheduling in a few minutes of humor, or watching 30 minutes, or subscribing to your favorite late night show to get the reminder that it's up, is a wonderful way to cultivate your well-being. I just wanted to comment on that. Thank you, Sherry. Continue.
That's great. I have some questions, but there's ones in the Q&A, so let me go to those first. So the first question that's come in says, do you find that your mental health programs are more receptive or resistant by different age groups?
Great question. So we absolutely have to adapt to different age groups. And we've been very fortunate. My wife and I have 3 boys. We've got middle school, high school, and college. And so as they were going through, we had a little bit of a heads up. You can learn this stuff, study it, publish about it, but when it comes to your own children, you're a beginning parent just as much as anyone else is. And so what I found is, over the years, the coaching and the parenting influences the professional work, which influences the parenting. So yes, theoretically, there are programs that should work across K-12, but there are certain things that just have way more valence with younger children and younger kids. And there are things that you have to do with high school students really to engage them. They have a great BS meter, middle school and high school. So you've got to be even more authentic. And the best example of that was there were 2 suicide prevention curricula that were presented that when Sherry and I started working together a lot in 2009 after some of the tragedies in the local communities, they came to us and said, well, what do you think has more take with this particular group? And we found that we had to use different material for middle school compared to high school, because the middle school material from the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention was wonderful, but it used actors and actresses. The high school students could not stand it, because as soon as we played the first minute of the clip, what they were asking us, what they were writing in their questions was, I want to know, are these people real, or are they just reading off a script? And the acting was wonderful, but they could tell that it was not real stories from real teenagers and young adults who had struggled and what they had done to get better. And so then we had to move to a different format and a different curriculum, and that went much better. So the answer is yes, we have to adapt. And even when we're talking about suicide prevention, we have to embed it with mental health promotion and well-being, not only for the students, but also for the teachers and the parents, because otherwise they may not go to that particular talk. There may not be as much take. So we got to do well-being promotion at the same time we're doing suicide prevention. We talk about it as, flying a plane. You've got to have both wings of the plane in order to make forward movement for any community. So yes, we do need to adapt to the different age groups and the different cultural contexts we might be in. If we're working in a community setting with a large immigrant population, for example, and we have parents, most of whom did not go to high school in the US, we really have to do our homework to make sure that we are crafting our message and that we have people on the panel who can not only serve as cultural brokers, but who also have themselves experienced some of what the community has experienced. Our message just gets amplified so much better, and when it can be interpreted properly for whichever kind of community we're engaging in.
Great, that is so helpful. I've got 2 more questions in the Q&A box, and I think we have time to get to both of them before break. But if you have other questions, please include them there, and Dr. Joshi will respond, and we will get you an answer afterwards.
Absolutely.
So the next question is, how has social media played a role in mental health, both negatively and positively?
Yeah, that's being studied right now. The conventional wisdom is that, or I would say wisdom, the thinking at the time, even just 2 years ago, we published a paper with some colleagues from UC Davis reviewing the literature, looking at social media and its role in youth and what the implications are for educators in mental health and what kind of coaching do we need to be doing. And we saw a lot of the downside. We saw a lot of the problems, a lot of the big research looking at, more association with obesity, more association with, sedentary lifestyle. Those who are very high screen time users tend to be sleeping much less, tend to be on screens much longer, tend to be more sedentary. Well, it turns out some of the more recent research looks at what are the benefits. And now with so many of these online platforms offering virtual mental health, offering tips and tools to be able to include mindfulness in your daily practice, very simply. Those of you who watch football, you'll see even on NFL Network and on CBS and NBC, the Calm app will be advertised. Do nothing for 30 seconds, and you'll see the little bar going across until 30 seconds happens, and then you'll see it calm. And that app is free, by the way. So many of the apps now that you can get, and so many of the tools that young people can use can be found through online platforms. And I think what we need to understand better is how much is too much, and how, as parents, can we have these conversations with our youth, our young people, our own kids, as well as when we are engaging with young people in the clinic, really to be curious and find out, how do you all use social media? What are your favorite sites? And does it ever feel like it gets too much for you? And if so, tell me how that is. Because as clinicians with teenagers in particular, if we maintain a stance of curiosity, the teenagers have to teach us. They're more likely to open up. And so what we tell parents is try to maintain that curiosity, even if the bubble over your head is, you're just freaking out because you know what kind of sites they're going to. Be curious about where they're going and what they're watching, and try to watch some things together. Try to get introduced to some of the things they like to do and see if you might like to do it. And maybe you don't like to do it, but at least it gives you a little eye into what they're interested in. So I think the jury's out about, the pluses and minuses of social media. Social media is here to stay. And we really have to help our young people manage the use of their devices and social media in order to be able to cultivate the other parts of their life in addition to what happens on a phone or a screen.
Thank you. The last one is a very quick question. One of our participants says a lot of this material was included in a course that she took at Yale called The Science of Well-Being by Laurie Santos, who's a psychology professor. She wants to know whether, and that course is available online. She was wondering if Stanford has a similar online course.
So Stanford has a number of offerings that I think are going to become free. They are part of this movement of massive open online courses, or MOOCs. Right now, our course, The Psychology of Stoked, is only offered as an InterSem for freshmen and sophomores, but our goal is to turn that into a large course first at Stanford and eventually as a MOOC. So if you do a search for happiness courses at Stanford or well-being courses at Stanford, there's a whole Stanford well-being, it's not a department, but the wellness folks and the well-being folks through Vaden are doing a number of terrific initiatives to make it more available to the public, even those who are not students or faculty at Stanford. So we have actually learned quite a bit from the courses at Yale and at NYU. And we've crafted our course in a way to really reach out to freshmen and sophomores because that was our charge. And also as part of the Freshman 101 initiative and the Equity and Mental Health initiative that Stanford's involved with. But our goal is to someday be able to take what we're doing in the classroom and make it available to much wider national and global audience, and ideally, free of charge, so that, or at some nominal fee, so that more people can access it. So thank you for that reminder. The Yale course is wonderful.
Great. If I decide to change jobs and careers, can I become your publicist?
Oh my goodness. I'd want to be your publicist, Sherry.
And on that, thank you so much for spending your morning with us. If if you have other questions, or later on today you think of a question, send them to the chamber. We'll get them to Dr. Joshi, and we'll send you responses by email. At this point in time, we're going to take a 30-minute break. We'll be back at 11:30 for the panel discussion on San Mateo County Strong Emergency Response in a Time of Crisis. My last words would be, let's not waste all of the crises we've had this year. And the last time I counted, I think I was up to 4 or 5. 2020 has not been a great year, but look at them as a potential for some opportunities to change how we do things so that we can go forward in a healthier, more complete way and start bringing our communities back together. So with that, again, thank you all very much. Have a good break, and we'll see you back here at 11:30.